Warm greetings, dear learner. Welcome back to our Cozy Corner stories. If you enjoy learning, remember to subscribe. This is Learn English Through Story. Watch until the end to see what happens to a heart that refuses to slow down. Rumor moved like wind between rail cars. Somewhere east of the Salt Flats, a traveler had found a door that wasn't there, stepped through, and returned with eyes quiet as a lake at dawn. The rumor reached Marco long after midnight, when the train swung across a bridge that trembled as if it had nerves. He pressed his forehead to the cold glass and saw his reflection, a face that looked alert even when exhausted, a jaw set like a lock. He had not slept well in years. Peace to him was a foreign language, beautiful and impossible to speak. He traveled because stillness frightened him. In stillness, thought became thunder. So he collected stamps in his passport, like charms against a storm, and told himself that new skies could calm old weather. Yet the storm traveled too. It rode buses, boats, and overnight trains. It filled the space behind his eyes. He tried tea, then coffee, then no drink at all. He tried music that promised gentle waves and apps that hummed like friendly bees. The bees grew louder. The waves rose and crashed. The rumor felt like a rope thrown from the dark. A door that wasn't there. What did that even mean? He smiled, a little ashamed of his own hope. Still, he noted the town name whispered by a vendor selling fried dough in a paper cone. San Isidro del Viento. The vendor leaned close as if the dough had secrets. People go there to forget, the man said, or to remember correctly. Morning arrived with dusty gold light and a smell of hot iron. Marco stepped off the train into a station that seemed carved from silence. The platform clock had no hands. A stray dog yawned without sound. Even the pigeons negotiated the air with grace, as if noise were a tax they could not afford. He walked toward the town along a road lined with sickle-shaped shadows. Locals sat beneath jacaranda trees, purple blossoms drifting down like slow confetti. He asked about the door, politely in a dozen ways. Some shrugged, some smiled with the patience of people who have seen many travelers asking the same question. Finally, a woman brewing coffee over a small blue flame gestured with her chin. Try the house by the well. An old man sits there most days. He listens more than he speaks. The well stood at the center of a square that seemed to breathe. It inhaled the footsteps of children and exhaled the whispers of old stories. On a bench by the well sat a man whose white shirt glowed softly, as if made from morning. His hair was silver, but his eyes played like small fires, bright and calm. He did not look up when Marco approached. He was watching the surface of the water. "Excuse me," Marco said, careful with his words. "I heard that someone here knows about a door that isn't there." The old man smiled without moving his gaze. "Many doors are like that," he said. "They appear only when you stop looking for them." Marco felt impatience stir, then embarrassment at the impatience. He sat. The bench creaked once, then settled. A leaf fell into the well and made a circle that grew and grew. The old man finally turned. "Your mind runs," he said gently. "You think it is chasing peace. Perhaps it is running from the present moment, where peace is already sitting." For the first time in a long while, Marco had nothing to say. Marco walked down the path from the old man's porch with his heart beating fast. The task with a glass of water had been simple, yet the meaning behind it echoed deeply inside him. For the first time in years, his stormy thoughts had grown quiet, but the silence frightened him. He wondered, could such peace really last? As night fell over the village, Marco stayed at a small inn. The wooden walls creaked, and the smell of pine drifted in from the open window. But his mind began to stir again. Memories of the past returned. The mistakes he had made, the friendships he had lost, the chances he had wasted. He thought about words he wished he had never spoken, and moments he wished he could live again. His chest tightened, and once more he felt like a prisoner of his own mind. The next morning, Marco returned to the old man. His voice shook slightly as he spoke. "Grandfather, yesterday I felt peace. But today, the same old thoughts came back. They haunt me. I can't escape them." The old man looked at him with calm, knowing eyes. He placed a hand on Marco's shoulder and said softly, "My child, you are carrying a bag of stones on your back. Every regret, every mistake, these are stones. You pick them up each day, though no one asks you to, and you wonder why you feel so heavy. Marco lowered his head. He could almost feel that invisible bag pressing down on him. The old man continued, "The past is not your enemy. It is your teacher. But if you live inside it, you become its slave." "Tell me, Marco, can yesterday be changed?" "No," Marco whispered. "And can tomorrow be controlled?" "No, not really." "Then why?" The old man asked gently. "Do you sacrifice the day for what you cannot touch?" Marco felt the words cut through him like a sharp blade. Tears filled his eyes. He realized he had lived most of his life either in yesterday's shadow or tomorrow's worry, but never in today's light. The old man gave him another task. He handed Marco a small wooden bowl filled with sand and said, "Go to the river. Stand in the water and let the current carry the sand away. Little by little, as you do, imagine your regrets leaving you. Speak them out loud if you must. Then come back to me." Marco obeyed. At the river, he stepped into the cool water. The sand slipped between his fingers and drifted downstream. With each handful, he whispered a regret. "I am sorry for the harsh words I spoke to my brother. I forgive myself for failing in my first job. I released the fear that I wasted too much time." The river carried his confessions away, and Marco felt lighter. By the time the bowl was empty, his tears had stopped. He looked up at the sky. For the first time in years, he felt as though the air itself had more space, more freedom. When he returned, the old man smiled. "You see, Marco, the river teaches us. It does not hold the water. It lets it flow. In the same way, you must let your thoughts flow. Keep only the lesson, not the weight." Marco bowed deeply. For the first time, he understood that peace was not about erasing the past. It was about forgiving it. The sun rose over San Isidro del Viento, painting the mountains in strokes of amber and rose. Marco sat outside the inn, sipping warm tea, but his mind was already racing. What if the peace he felt yesterday disappeared tomorrow? What if he failed again? What if he never learned how to control his restless thoughts? The what ifs grew louder, wrapping around his chest like chains. Even with the memory of the river still fresh, Marco could not stop thinking about the future. He imagined disasters that hadn't happened, failures that might never come, losses that existed only in his mind. When he returned to the old man, his voice was shaky. "Grandfather, I let go of the past yesterday, but now my mind keeps pulling me into tomorrow. I cannot stop worrying. How do I silence the future?" The old man nodded slowly, as if he had been waiting for this question. "Marco, the future is a seed. It is not grown yet, but you keep trying to eat the fruit before the tree is even alive. And so you starve yourself with hunger for what is not there." He stood, leaning on a wooden staff, and motioned for Marco to follow. They walked to a small garden behind the house. Rows of vegetables and herbs grew quietly under the morning light. The old man bent down, picked up a seed, and placed it in Marco's palm. "Tell me, Marco, if you put the seed in the ground today, will you eat its fruit tomorrow?" "No," Marco said. "And if you sit and worry about it every hour, will it grow faster?" Marco shook his head. The old man's eyes softened. "Then why do you torture yourself with tomorrow? Worry does not water the seed. Presence does." He handed Marco a clay jar. "Take this water to the garden. Every day, give the plants just enough. Do not think of the harvest. Do not imagine storms that have not come. Simply care for today's task, and the future will take care of itself." So Marco began to practice. Each morning, he carried the jar to the garden. At first, his thoughts still drifted to what might go wrong. But slowly, as the days passed, his eyes began to notice more. The way the soil smelled sweet after watering, the way tiny green shoots broke through the earth, the way sunlight bent toward the leaves. One evening, as fireflies lit the air, Marco realized something. While he had been busy worrying about the future, life itself had been quietly unfolding in front of him. He had never noticed it before, because his eyes had always been on some imagined tomorrow. When he told the old man what he had discovered, the elder simply said, "Yes, Marco, life does not happen in the past or the future. It happens only here, in this breath, in this step, in this heartbeat. When you give your full attention to this moment, the future no longer frightens you, because you are alive where you truly are. That night, Marco lay in bed listening to the sounds of the village. A dog barking in the distance, the soft hum of crickets, the slow rhythm of his own breathing. For the first time, he did not chase thoughts forward or backward. He let himself simply exist. And in that stillness, he drifted into the deepest sleep he had known in years. The next morning, Marco woke with a clarity he had not known in years. His sleep had been deep, his breath calm, his body refreshed. But the real test of peace, the old man warned, was not in quiet gardens or empty rooms. It was in the noise of life itself. "Today," the old man said, handing Marco a small basket, "you will go to the village market. There you will learn whether your mind can stay in the present while the world tries to pull it away." Marco nodded, a little nervous. He carried the basket down the cobble road toward the square. Even before he reached it, he heard the sounds: shouts of sellers, laughter of children, the clatter of hooves, the sharp notes of flutes played by wandering musicians. The square was alive with color. Stalls overflowed with fruits so bright they looked painted. Fabrics in every shade danced like banners in the wind. Spices rose in clouds of gold and red. Marco felt his senses flood at once. So many things to see, to hear, to want. Almost instantly, his thoughts began to scatter. Should he buy this? What if he didn't choose the right item? What if he looked foolish? What if he spent too much? He felt the old familiar storm rising, and his heart began to race. He remembered the old man's words. Life is here, not in your fear. So Marco stopped. He placed the basket down for a moment, closed his eyes, and listened only to his breathing. In, out, in, out. He noticed the cool air as it entered his nose, the warmth as it left. Slowly, the noise of the market softened. He opened his eyes again. This time, instead of drowning in the chaos, he saw details. The gentle wrinkle at the corner of a baker's smile as he offered bread to a child. The precise, patient hands of a weaver tying knots into a bright cloth. The way the sunlight rested on an apple until it seemed to glow from within. Marco picked his items carefully, but without hurry. Each step, each choice, he treated as if it were the only thing in the world. And, to his surprise, the market no longer felt overwhelming. It felt alive, like a great story unfolding in front of him, moment by moment. When he returned to the old man with the basket, he said, "Grandfather, I nearly lost myself again. But then I remembered to breathe, and the noise became music instead of confusion." The old man smiled. "Yes, Marco, distractions are not the enemy. They are invitations. They ask you, will you leave your peace to chase them, or will you remain rooted in this breath, this step, this now?" That evening, as Marco watched the sunset wash the sky in orange and purple, he felt a quiet pride. For the first time, he had faced the storm of the world and stayed calm within it. Days passed in the quiet village, and Marco felt lighter each morning. He learned to notice the small details of life. The chirp of a sparrow, the warmth of tea, the way shadows stretched long at sunset. Yet peace is not only tested by noise or distraction. Sometimes it is tested by the fire inside. One afternoon, Marco walked past a group of young men repairing a cart. They laughed and joked, but one of them pointed at Marco and said loudly, "Look at the dreamer. He thinks walking slowly makes him wise." The others burst into laughter. The words pierced Marco's chest. His face grew hot. His hands clenched into fists. For a moment, the storm inside him raged stronger than ever. He wanted to shout, to defend himself, to throw back words sharper than theirs. But then he remembered the old man's teachings. He stopped walking and closed his eyes. He breathed deeply, listening to the rise and fall of his breath. He asked himself, where am I now? Am I in their words, or am I in this moment? The anger slowly softened. When he opened his eyes, he saw the young men still laughing, but their laughter was no longer a prison. It was just sound, like the bark of a dog or the cry of a bird. It could not harm him unless he chose to carry it. Later that day, he told the old man what had happened. The elder listened, then nodded. Marco, emotions are like fire. Fire can cook your food, warm your house, and light your path. But if you hold it in your bare hands, it burns you. Anger is the same. If you cling to it, it destroys your peace. If you let it pass through awareness, it becomes harmless. The old man led Marco to the hearth inside his small house. A pot of soup simmered gently over flames. He pointed to the firewood. See how the wood burns? It gives warmth, but the fire does not leap out of the pot. It stays where it belongs. That is how you must treat your emotions. Let them be noticed. Let them give you their lesson, but do not let them escape into your hands or your tongue. Marco sat silently, watching the dance of the flames. For the first time, he understood that peace was not about never feeling anger or sadness. It was about learning not to be ruled by them. That night, as he lay down to sleep, he whispered to himself, "The fire within me is not my enemy. It is only energy. I choose whether to burn or to shine." With that thought, his restless mind grew a little quieter. One misty morning, Marco woke before dawn. The village was silent, wrapped in the cool breath of the mountains. He walked alone to the empty streets, hearing only the crunch of gravel beneath his sandals. For the first time since arriving, he felt the weight of silence not as peace, but as loneliness. His chest ached. A voice inside whispered, "What if you stay this way forever? What if no one understands you? What if peace means being alone?" The doubts grew heavy. He missed his friends from distant cities, even if they had never truly understood his restlessness. He longed for the warmth of company, for someone to walk beside him. When he found the old man later that morning, Marco confessed, "Grandfather, today I feel hollow. Even the quiet feels like an empty room. Does peace mean I must always be alone?" The old man studied him with gentle eyes. Then he picked up a small clay lamp and lit it. The flame flickered weakly in the dim light. He handed the lamp to Marco. "Tell me, is this flame alone?" Marco looked at it, puzzled. "Yes, it burns by itself." The old man shook his head. "No, Marco. It burns with the oil, with the wick, with the air that feeds it. It seems alone, but it is connected to everything. In the same way, you are never truly alone. The breath you take is the mountain's gift. The ground beneath your feet holds you. Even when people are not near, life itself walks with you." Marco felt the truth of those words settle in his heart. He looked at the trees swaying beyond the porch, the birds sweeping through the sky, the river murmuring in the distance. He realized that he was surrounded, always, by a quiet companionship, the company of the present moment. The old man continued, "Loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of connection. When you connect with this moment, with the sound of a bird, with the feel of the wind, you are never alone. The whole world sits with you." That night, Marco sat beneath a tree and watched the stars. The sky stretched endlessly, filled with silent lights. Yet he did not feel abandoned. He felt accompanied by the vastness itself, as though the universe leaned closer to remind him, "You belong here." For the first time, Marco understood that peace was not about escaping loneliness. It was about discovering the invisible threads that connected him to everything. Marco's days in the village grew brighter. Each morning felt like a fresh canvas, each breath a gentle teacher. But peace, as the old man had warned, is a fragile flower. It must be guarded, especially against the storms we invite ourselves. One afternoon, a group of travelers passed through the village. They carried stories of cities filled with opportunity, bright lights, endless work, constant movement. Their voices rang with excitement as they spoke of wealth, recognition, and the thrill of chasing more. Marco listened, and something inside him stirred. A familiar restlessness rose again, whispering, "Maybe you should return. Maybe peace is just laziness. Maybe success means never stopping." That night, Marco could not sleep. His mind galloped like a wild horse, dragging him toward imagined futures of fortune and fame. He pictured himself in crowded streets, rushing with purpose. For a moment, he almost believed that the storm was life, and the calm was nothing but escape. The next morning, weary-eyed, he went to the old man. "Grandfather," Marco said, "the storm calls me again. I hear its voice saying I must run, achieve, and prove myself. What if staying here means I waste my life? The old man placed a stone in Marco's hand. Throw it into the river, he instructed. Marco obeyed. The stone sank with a soft splash. Now wait, said the old man. They stood together, watching the circle spread across the surface. At first the ripples were wide and strong, but soon they faded until the water was still once more. Do you see? The old man said. The storm of ambition, of chasing more, is like the ripples. It spreads fast, it looks powerful, but it always fades. True peace, Marco, is like the river itself. Always flowing, always present, deeper than any ripple. The storm calls loudly, but its voice is temporary. The river whispers quietly, but its truth lasts forever. Marco felt tears rise. He understood. Chasing more would never end his restlessness, only feed it. The storm lived in the hunger for what was not yet here. The river lived in the presence of what already was. That evening, Marco sat by the well and watched children play. Their laughter was free, needing nothing more than the moment itself. And for the first time, he smiled without effort. The village awoke with golden light spilling over the hills. Marco rose from his bed and felt a calmness he could not have imagined weeks ago. His heart no longer raced with fear of the past or hunger for the future. Instead, it beat in rhythm with the simple sounds of morning. The crow of a rooster, the crackle of fire, the murmur of the river. He went to the old man for the last time. Bowing deeply, Marco said, "Grandfather, I understand now. Peace is not found in running or in waiting. It is here in this moment, in the way I breathe, walk, listen, and live." The old man's eyes shone. "Yes, Marco, you came searching for a door that was hidden, but the door was never far. It was always here in your awareness. When you live in the present, you step through it, and beyond it lies peace." Marco sat quietly for a long while. He felt no urge to speak, no need to ask for more. The silence itself was enough. When the time came to leave the village, Marco did not feel sadness. He knew the old man's wisdom would walk with him. On the road back to the mountains, he carried no heavy bag of regrets, no chains of worry. The storm still whispered from time to time, but now he knew it could not control him. As he walked, he noticed things he had never seen before. The sharp sweetness of pine carried on the wind, the play of sunlight through shifting leaves, the softness of his own footsteps on the earth. Each detail felt like a gift. And in that moment, Marco realized something extraordinary. The restless mind had not been an enemy, but a teacher. It had led him to the truth that peace was not somewhere else, not someday, not hidden in the distance. It was here, always, waiting in the present. At the crest of the hill, Marco turned back once. The village lay below, small and serene, like a painting on the earth. He whispered, "Thank you," not just to the old man, but to life itself. Then he walked on, not to chase peace, but to live it. Herb reflection for you, dear learner. Marco's story reminds us that peace is not in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's dreams. It is in today's breath. Living in the present moment gives us freedom. Backhand index pointing right, can you share in the comments? What is one small moment today that you can fully enjoy, just as it is? Thank you for staying until the end of this story. Remember to subscribe, like, and share so more people can learn English through stories filled with meaning and heart. Glowing star.